It's Friday, and this is the Morning Booster. Welcome back, everybody. We're continuing on with Teferi Week, and we are opening up today the Teferi Planeswalker deck that was part of the Dominaria set release. Now, I've been holding on to this Planeswalker deck for a few months now, and I picked it up for $12.99 at my local gaming store. And right out of the gates, one of the first things that I will tell you is that this is a better deal overall than the Core 2021, purely on the fact that you get 2 booster packs in this set versus only 1 in the 2021 set. Now, granted, if you look at things from a competitive, which cards are better, there might be an argument to be made that the Core 2021 set is better, but purely from a collector standpoint, I certainly like this product more from a price standpoint. With that said, though, the artwork on it itself, just right out of the gate, I think is also better. Now, this is a younger, more aggressive-looking Teferi compared to, or Teferi, I keep saying it wrong, versus what we see on the Core 2021, but that's kind of makes the character so cool, is that you get to see different iterations of him across all the different sets. There's a lot of history with this character, which is something that I can really appreciate. Same thing as I talk about some of my fan favorites, like Nicole Bolas, and Niv Mitz. I like those characters as well. So when I see sets like this, it really helps me to connect with the characters and makes me want to collect them more. Again, casual collector. Cracking it open, the first thing that we're going to see is the good old Mythic Rare itself. This is the Teferi Timebender Planeswalker card. Now, I'm not going to talk about its playability, but from an art standpoint, I really like it. I think it, again, kind of just drives home the character. I would actually argue that this art is more impressive than what we see in Core 2021 because it's simpler. I feel like that the Core 2021 or Teferi cards that you're getting as part of the boosters are a little too gimmicky. It reminds me very much of comic book covers in the 90s where there's 20 different versions of the same card, when there was back in 20 different versions of a comics cover. Gosh, X-Men #1, the Jim Lee. I can remember the number of different covers that there were to collect. Was it the plain one? Was it 1 through 5? Was it hologram? It feels like the same thing here. So I know I'm on a bit of a rant, but it's something that I hope as Wizards goes forward, they don't keep making these kind of mistakes, keep doing these kind of things, because even as a collector, it's a little bit of a turnoff, because I'm not going to go out there and buy 20 different versions of the same card. I'm going to find the 1 or 2 that I really like, and I'm going to add it to my collection. Checking out what else is in the deck, what we've got is our deck box. Now, if you look at this compared to what we got in the Core 2021, you see that you've got some great art comparisons there. So again, you're looking at a younger, more aggressive Teferi versus an older, wiser one that seems to be more confident. So I like the dichotomy between the 2 deck boxes, and I in general like the deck boxes because it's a good place as I get a small handful of cards that Z and I play with. I throw those in there just so we know that, hey, these aren't collector's cards, these are for play only. So if we crack open the deck box, what we see inside is that we have obviously the deck that comes with it and the booster packs we've already talked about. But the other thing that I really am a big fan of with these decks is that these quick reference guides that come with, I like the fact that they share a little bit about the specifics of that deck, but then also provide a resource for how to play the game in general. So if we look at the deck specific pamphlet, really what we see here is what a Planeswalker card does and some of the common mechanics that are included as part of this deck. So, for example, one of the things we could see here is counters. It talks about counters and flying and how those function within the game. Again, if you're a seasoned player, you already know all this stuff. You're not even going to care. But if you're a newbie like Z, it's fantastic. On the back of the flyer, what we see is just some promotional stuff, blah. I really hate the unnecessary promoting that they do within the products. I think if you're buying Magic, you already know what it is, or if you don't, your friendly local game store will help you out. The other thing that comes with this is the quick reference guide. Again, I like to give these to Z just to kind of help him get more familiar with the rules and build in good gameplay habits. Making sure, for example, to play through a turn properly. What's the order in which you do things? Even somebody like myself, who's been with the game since the beginning, it's handy to have this available so that I can refer back to it and go, okay, well, which do I do first? Do I untap or do I do upkeep? So it's a great little thing that comes with it. And I'm glad that Wizards continues to put these in these kind of decks, because I really do feel it helps transition from the newbie to the intermediate play level. So looking at the actual deck that came with this product, we see right out of the gates that we have Nyambi, who is one of the cards that's now showing up in Core 2021. I think there's been a few different booster openings now where we've seen her. It's a useful card, and one of the things that opening up that Core 2021 deck earlier in the week taught me was that expect a lot of duplicates when it comes to the rares and the uncommons. If the deck, not if, but the deck is designed to be replayable, so obviously there's going to be a lot of repetition. What we also can see in this video is the simple fact that I do not know how to open up these decks yet, and completely ignore the special little tab there that you can just pull to open it and just tear into it like a 4-year-old. So my apologies to anybody that might offend. But what we can see is we get our Nyambi, we get some Daring Archaeologist. Hey, there's another Faith Healer, so there's 2 of those in the deck. Then we get Zahid, Jinn of the Lamp. Then we get Sparring Construct. Now, I know there's a couple different Sparring Constructs in this. There's also a couple of Knight of New Benalla. Or is it Benalla? Benalla? I won't read through all of these as I go through them, but again, what you see is that there's quite a bit of repetition. This is meant to be a playable deck out of the gate. There shouldn't be anything added or removed from it, though certainly you can if you want to. So I'm not going to go and read through every individual card. As you're watching the video, you'll have the opportunity to see all of the cards that come in this deck. But I will say that overall, it's a nice assortment. I think, for example, cards like Teferi Sentinel have use within the deck, but I don't necessarily know if I would have any use outside of it, purely from a collector standpoint. Now, there is Sarah's Angel, and I completely forgot that Sarah's Angel was an uncommon originally. I always thought it was a rare. So somebody recently told me that, no, it's been an uncommon since the beginning, and I'm kind of shocked at that. I know back at when I started playing that it was always that card that was like one of the big ones. It was like the Shivan Dragon or the Force of Nature. Yeah, there were the Black Lotuses, the Mox, and that. But when you were talking a bunch of guys in college playing, it was more focused on those kind of cards like Sarah's Angel and Shivan that had the biggest impact, because they were the ones that you were attacking with, and you would just see them. We were all trying to collect them at that point. Again, we see a lot of repetition. Like I said, Temporal Machination. We get 4 of those. We've got a ton of plains and islands in there. Then the nice thing here is that there's also the Meandering River, which you get 4 of those, which is a nice blue-white combo land that definitely helps out with the deck. I'll probably steal those and put them into a different deck at a later date. Overall, I would say that this is a good Planeswalker deck, especially if you are an intermediate level player. I think there is a lot of versatility within the basic deck itself, and I like the fact that the repetition ensures that you have a playable deck out of the gates, as opposed to one that you have to tweak a little bit on your own. I would say that the booster packs are almost kind of like a bonus in this case, because you really don't necessarily need to add anything from them to the basic deck in order to get some use out of it. I will say, though, however, that some of the cards within the deck are really only intended for use within it, if that makes sense. Point being is that you're not going to buy this deck in order to grab just 2 or 3 cards out of it to use in other decks. You're either going to play the deck as it is, or you're just going to throw it in a box as a collector like I would. Now that we know what's in the Teferi Planeswalker deck from Dominaria, why don't we go ahead and crack open the 2 boosters that came with it. If you recall some of my old videos, probably a couple of years ago, I was doing a series called The Search for Karn. I was really hoping to get this guy right here, as that was the card I was really chasing after out of this set. Since then, I've kind of mellowed out. The card isn't worth as much. I still want to get it, so hopefully I will. But at this point, I'm just interested to see what we get out of these 2 booster packs. So why don't we go ahead? We'll save Karn. Just out of respect for him, we'll do him second. We'll start with Mr. Birdman here. So we start out with Warlord Fury, 1 red. Creatures you control gain first strike until end of turn. Draw a card. Yeah. Next up, we have boom, boom, charge. All right, creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. All right, not bad. We've got Arcane Flight. I've seen this one in a couple different formats. So far, what I'm noticing here, though, is that these are all one-cast spells. But this one's an enchantment. It's an aura enchant creature. They get +1/+1 and flying. So not as good as what we saw or we see now with Ikoria, because I do like those tokens better than these enchantment cards, but still a pretty useful card, especially for 1 mana. Okay. Gitu Chronicler. So that's a human wizard. Red, 1 red, 1 colorless. Got kicker on it. Mammoth spiders. I feel like July is becoming spider month for me. It seems like every booster, regardless of what set, I'm pulling spiders. So here we see another one. Spiders are always good, though. I mean, even back at the very beginning, you would have spiders in your deck if you were playing in green, just purely to deal with flyers, if nothing else. So reach is a handy tool to have in your deck, but I don't really feel like for this casting cost, the Mammoth spider is really worth it. Drudge Sentinel. It's another one that I seem to recall from way back when I was opening up these Dominaria. It's a great looking picture, a fantastic image of a skeleton warrior. Really like the sword in there too, even though if it has allusions to He-Man, that it does kind of look like the sword of power there, I guess. But let's see, for 3 mana you can tap the Drudge Sentinel. It gains indestructible until end of turn, so that's a pretty effective ability to have. 3 manas, it's a lot, especially early in the game, but I could see an advantage of having these guys if you're playing black. All right, next up we've got Keldon Raider. Seen that one quite a bit. Not really much that I want to talk about. Broken Bond. Destroy target artifact or creature. You may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. For 2 mana, I like that one. That's a handy one to have available. Divination. Draw 2 cards. I like cards that'll give you the ability to pull extra or draw extra cards from your deck. I don't know, though, if at 3 mana this is a particularly great card to have. I'd be interested, since we're looking at a set now that's a couple of years old, if there's something better in the more recent sets that could replace this. But if I was playing straight up blue, I might slip this into my Teferi deck, or even the Teferi deck from Core 2021 if I'm doing just casual play at home. Alright, so I had pulled out by accidentally Mesa Unicorn. So this is a 1 white, 1 colorless, has lifelink for a 2/2 unicorn. Unicorns seem to be a big theme of 2020 as well. I know that Jumpstart has quite a few of them in it. So I think this would be a useful card. Again, for casual home play, what I'm into, I certainly would consider putting together a unicorn deck. Looking over, though, what we pulled for our first uncommon, we got Urza's Tomb. So it's an artifact. 3, it's 2 to cast, 3 to activate its ability and tapping it, draw a card, then discard a card unless you exile a historic card from your graveyard. Okay, interesting. Hey, Sport Crown Thallid. I love the Thalids. It's such an old theme. It's up there with, for me, like Slivers. It's just one of those classic, kind of unique to Magic races that I just enjoy seeing. So this little dude here, each other creature you control that's a fungus or a saproling gets +1/+1, and he's for 2 mana. Ooh, I like that, especially with some of the Core 2021 saprolings cards, or is it Ikoria? Regardless, point is that there are some other fungus cards out there that I could probably throw together to make a fun little deck. So I like this guy. All right, so that was number 2 for our uncommon. Whoa, here we go. So this is Antiquities War. So this is our rare. Interesting. I wonder if that means something exciting ahead. Looking at the top cards, this has got a, before I start reading the spell, so this is one of those sagas, which was kind of a complex mechanic when I first saw it. I mean, I get the fundamentals of it, but I still feel like it's a bit confusing if you're doing Newbie Hammer, oh my gosh, people are going to yell at me, Newbie Magic. So we got, for a casting cost of 1 blue, 3 colorless, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal an artifact card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So that is at 1 and 2 tokens, and at 3 tokens, artifacts you control become artifact creatures with a base power of toughness of 5/5 till the end of turn. Ooh, that is like a ticking time bomb. This gives me some Mirrodin vibes. So this is really reminding me back when Mirrodin came out and it was all about the artifacts. Again, casual home play, this is the kind of stuff that I like because it would be fun just to throw a bunch of stupid artifacts in there and then get this guy out onto the table. So fun card. It is the rare. It's not something I was chasing after, but definitely going to be something going into the binder. Now that makes me curious, what's the next card in the set here? We've got, interesting. So now this is just our third uncommon, and this is Denetha Capuchin, the Paragon. So it's a legendary creature, Human Knight. Again, if I ever get around to putting together that Human Knight deck, she might potentially go into it. But she has First Strike, Vigilance, and Lifelink. And aura and equip spells you cast cost 1 less. Okay, so there you go. So I believe that means that the sword that we've been pulling out of Core 2021, that's 1 mana, would be free. So it's just an auto drop if she's on the table. So that is nice. All right, so we should have like a land card next. Yep, so there's our green land. Nothing exciting about. We've seen plenty of those. And then a cleric token. So there is our first of the 2 boosters that came out of the Planeswalker deck from Dominaria. So why don't we go ahead and let's open up the second one, see what we got there. All right, so we start off with Evacuation Elephant. Seen this one before. 3/5, but it's got a high casting cost on it. Next up, we've got Artificer's Assistant. Great art. Love the artwork on this one. So it's a 1/1 bird flying. Whenever you cast a historic spell, scry 1. All right. Keldon Warcaller. We've seen that one in the last booster. Healing Grace. Prevent the next 3 damage that would be dealt to any target this turn by a source of your choice. You gain 3 life, so practical. Like it. Soul Salvage. Return up to 2 target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. Ooh, that'd be handy. What I'm finding interesting as I go through these is that I don't have a strong attachment to Dominaria. I liked it. I did buy a handful of boosters and the pre-release for it, but I certainly didn't engage with it like I have some of the more recent packs like Ikoria. Like I said, there was a couple of cards in there, in particular Karn, that I really wanted. But overall, it's just not a set that I have a strong relationship or strong feelings about. So as I go through these, I'm like, oh, that's a cool card. That's nice. But there's not a lot here that I'm seeing so far that I'm like, oh, yeah, that's why I love this set. Whereas Ikoria, I can guarantee a few years from now when I do the same thing with those cards or those boosters, I'm going to be like, oh, remember that? And look at that. So maybe Dominaria is something I really need to revisit as a booster box. I know they're getting up there in price, but maybe open up a bunch of them and just playing pure Dominaria with Z might inspire me, or not inspire me, but make me better appreciate what came out of this set. Clearly there's something of value in here because the booster boxes are going up rapidly for it. All right, so there's Mesa Unicorn. Again, we've seen it already. Nothing new and exciting. Divination, we've seen that one as well. Okay, so there's Short Sword. So that's what I was referring to with the last pack. So this one here, it's 1 cost. So with that uncommon card that we were looking at, the Legendary, this would be automatically 0 to slap it on the table, which suddenly makes it quite valuable if you were looking to play a fast white deck, I think. All right, so next up, we've got our Blessed Light. Ooh, what's below? Let's just skip Blessed Light. Okay, so there is Time of Ice. So this is a saga. When it enters on the 1 and 2, tap target creature an opponent controls. If it doesn't untap during its controller untap step for as long as you control Time of Ice. Interesting. Return all tapped creatures to their owner's hand. Wow. So that's another effective. You want to clear the board so you can blitz. That's the way to go with it. So that's a pretty cool enchantment saga there. I like that one. Could see some use out of it. So Fungus Plot. Here we go. All right, so this is 1 green, 1 colorless. For 2, the same exact, you can activate the enchantment, exile a creature card from your graveyard, create a 1/1 green sapperling creature token. Sacrifice 2 sapperlings, you gain 2 life and draw a card. I guess the downside of this, though, is that you're having to exile creature cards from your graveyard. But if you don't have a mechanic to pull anything out of the graveyard, suddenly I don't think that's as big an issue. I guess right now with me playing a little bit of black in my casual decks, I'm always kind of apprehensive about losing anything out of the graveyard because I have ways of getting that stuff back, especially with the Ikoria and doing mutates with the Necropanther just to get that stuff back when I want it. So for me, it's a cool card. I don't know how I would implement it unless I was playing straight up green Saproling, but definitely like it. So I'm assuming the next is the rare. No, so there's our Juggernaut. All right, so this is a classic. Oh my God, Juggernaut's been around for ages. And Juggernaut basically says it has to attack every turn if it's able to, and Juggernaut can't be blocked by walls. It's a 5/3, so it's got a good attack or good power, toughness so definitely a threat card at 4 mana, especially if you can get it out earlier in the game. So next up now should be my rare or mythic, and we get, boom. Ooh, what did we get here? Oh, that's kind of funny. So this is actually the character that we saw on the other booster pack. Here's his actual card, and this is Teshar, Ancestor's Apostle. He is a legendary creature, bird cleric, 1 white, 3 colorless. He has flying. When you cast a historic spell, return target creature card with converted mana cost of 3 or less from your graveyard to your battlefield. So this is exactly my point. If I'm playing a deck with this guy, I don't know if I'm necessarily playing that Saproling enchantment because I don't want to start pulling stuff on my graveyard if I'm playing other cards that are going to let me recycle that stuff. So it's always kind of a cost-risk equation that you kind of have to figure out. So for me, I like this guy. I mean, he's 2/2, so he's kind of easy to pop, but I still think I would probably try to experiment him with a little bit, especially if I'm playing the white soldier deck that I've talked about. Next we have our land. And then what does that mean at the bottom here? We have, oh, there's our little Saproling. So to end things off, we get a Saproling. Well, that is it for today's review of the Teferi Planeswalker deck out of Dominaria. I hope you enjoyed this review and booster pack opening. If you have any comments, questions, or feedback, leave them on down below. Otherwise, hit that like button if you're enjoying my videos, or better yet, subscribe. Otherwise, and as always, thanks for watching, everybody. Till next time.